Thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sunil Aggarwal. I'm the Executive Director for TiE New Jersey. Thanks for taking your time. I think the weather is kind of a little bad, but there were a couple of dropouts. But I think many of us have made it. Thank you. Thanks for your time. So very briefly, what I'm going to talk about is I think we have a good series of events which are coming up during this November time frame. Let me just run it by you so that you can mark your calendars before we kickstart the event. So today's October 16th, we have Rajesh who is going to be leading today's session along with Anand and Arun who are going to be supporting him. November 7th. Great event. This is the first time we are going to be having this joint event with South Asian Pharma Council. The chairman of GS Associates, J.D. Bajaj, he heads this council. And on November 7th, there will be two speakers there. Please mark your calendars. One is the Chief Data Officer from BMS, and the other one, the gentleman Krishna, who is going to be from Jensen. So it's going to be a joint event somewhere in Princeton, I think Princeton Forestry. So just we will be sending out the campaigns, but please just so that you can look at blocking your dates. It's also one of the topic for that event is a continuation, I would say, because today the focus is on great topic, by the way, right? You have picked and BMS, the person, the Chief Data Officer, is going to be talking about the digital transformation and analytics and the lessons learned, what they are doing at BMS. I think this should be probably a nice segue from today's event on November 7th. 14 is something which again we are working with three universities here. NJIT, Dr. Suresh Kumar. Oh yeah, he just came in. Oh, hi. Right timing. So Dr. Suresh Kumar from NJIT, Dr. David Weiss from NJCU, and Dr. Mukesh Patel from Rutgers, and Babita Howe from Rutgers. So they will be leading this November 14th event. It's going to be most likely at the Rutgers campus at the business school. The location is still being finalized, but most is going to be in Central Jersey area. November 14th. University ecosystem and TiE. Please look out for those events and the emails. So 20th, we do have a crowdfunding, raising capital, and something probably we may be pushing it out, probably towards January time frame. I think it's just way too crowded. It's close to Thanksgiving, and I think too many events. And so I think Sri somewhere, right? Yeah. So yeah, Sri will be leading that panel, and we will be working out some logistics and some details. Potentially, probably around January. Okay. I mean, those are definitely some updates in terms of the events which we have planned. There is an excellent a series of events where Neetu, hey Neetu, she is spearheading this mentoring Mondays for young entrepreneurs. We had a very successful event on October 7th at the PGA, and it's going to be a monthly series where we will have quite a few mentors. I think some of them are already sitting here. Chip. Chip, Dennis Mehta, and quite a few other members who are mentoring some of our young entrepreneurs. And so those are going to be, I think, first Monday of every month, right? For our university graduates and also some of those entrepreneurs who just graduated. So it's going to be at our office location, which is 5 Independence Way in Princeton. So again, thank you. Thank you, Neetu, for that initiative. I think it's a great initiative. I just spoke to TiE Global, and I spoke about our event, and I think they are very excited, and I'll be sharing some details with them and how we could leverage whatever learnings we have from TiE Global for that event. All right. That's pretty much in terms of those events which we have planning. Now, I would like to invite our president, Raman Kapur, to say a few words and
Thank you. That's terrific. And two of these events, I think you really want to be a bigger part of. So one of them is this young entrepreneurs. You cannot imagine the kind of value you can add to people who are just starting out. And many of you, who are, most all of you virtually, who are entrepreneurs, you remember how you started your journey.
Yes.
And it was not an easy thing to get off the ground.
Still not easy.
Still not easy. So what we've done is we've assembled from a group of 7 already, and there are others who want to join, potential mentors for this group of young entrepreneurs. Yeah. So we've got the start of that with about 8 entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and they want to bring in, some more young entrepreneurs into the group because word is getting around that there's this very exciting initiative, and they want more people to be involved in it, and it just adds so much value to these entrepreneurs, to these young entrepreneurs that they're taking off, that it makes me feel satisfied, that I'm part of this organization that is going to spawn these young entrepreneurs and these companies that will come with them, the employment and everything else, but really make the life of these people. So you'll find that to be interesting. The second thing, and Nidu is heading that, that initiative. And the second thing that Sunil is heading is taking innovation out of universities, and there's so much of it, and leveraging it to start new enterprises. So at Rutgers, they have this fund of $2 million that Pavita Howe runs, which is focused on seed, pre-seed money for innovation coming out of universities. And there's so much innovation there, but it's kind of not connected to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. They don't really know, professors in particular, don't really know how to leverage their innovation, how to start companies, and all the mechanics, the kinds of things that all of us do as part of running businesses. They're academicians. They don't have that know-how. Suresh Kumar is really trying to help lead that effort in NDIT as professor of entrepreneurship, and he's also going to be leading that program that we have on November 14th. So I hope many of you will be able to make it to that. But this is another one of those 2 exciting initiatives that could have very significant impact on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, on New Jersey, but more importantly, the life of individuals, these individual entrepreneurs. So become a part of it, and help out to the extent you can. Now, we have 2 individuals that we normally give a couple of individuals the opportunity to speak, and tell a little bit about themselves so we get to know them. So I'm going to call on 2 individuals, and after that, we come to the pièce de résistance, the main course for the evening, which will be led by Rajesh, Makhija, and Anand and Arun. Rajesh will lead it, and Anand and Arun are vital parts of that group. And what I will do is I will request Rajesh, when that time comes, to introduce himself and the other members of the cast. So thank you very much to all 3 of you for taking this time, and we'll get a chance to thank you again for being in the program. So now we will just have 2 individuals. One is Parag Shah, who is a relatively recent member, and another is Kritika Parmeshwaran, who is going to be a member and is attending her first meeting, a future member. And so Parag, take it away. Just take 1 to 2 minutes each. Introduce yourself so people get to know you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you, Raman. So I'm Parag Shah. I work for Wakefield Food Corporation, which is a cooperative based out of Central Jersey, and we are in the retail business, and the banners we have are ShopRite, Price Right and Fresh Grocer that you guys may have shopped at some point of time in your life if you're local people just like me. I oversee procurement and sales. I'm vice president over there. Been there for almost 2 decades now. And it's interesting times in the industry because this is a very mature industry and it's going through a lot of change with digitization. And it's great to be in this organization and to hear from different aspects and what the change is happening. You know, a couple months ago we had the event called Digital Tsunami, which I thought was great. We connected with the speaker, Uday and Bose. He did a great job that day, and we're already working with him on some aspects of business. So it's great to be here and nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Hello everybody. First of all, I just want to say this is a great opportunity to meet such bright people. So thank you, Raman. That was a nice plug. So hi everyone, I'm Kirtika Parmeshwaran. I am a budding entrepreneur. I want to say I'm the CEO of Vital Start Health. Vital Start Health is a Penn Center for Innovation startup where we are developing a digital therapeutic. What that means is you can think of it as virtual medicine for postpartum depression using virtual reality and artificial intelligence. This is a very interesting problem. I know postpartum depression, we all know about it, but I don't know if you know that it's more prevalent than the diabetes, stroke, and cancer put together in women every year. So 950,000 women suffer from it. And I too have tasted this with my firstborn, and I just lost my mom, so it was a really helpless situation for me. So I understand this feeling a lot, and I want to do something about this. The co-founder is Dr. John Cho. He's a neonatologist at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And you know, this is, not only is this a socially impactful opportunity, but it's also a $11 billion opportunity. There's a huge unmet need. And we are looking for your support and to get on this journey and actually get into this market. Thank you so much.
Rajesh, take it away.
Sure. Thank you. So warm welcome to both of you. Right? Whether you're a member or not, you're always welcome.
Thank you.
So my name is Rajesh Makhija. I'm a charter member here. I'll talk about myself in a minute, but first I would like to, invite my co-presenters today, Anand and Arun, to introduce themselves. And I think they are going to play, they are not going to play just a supporting role. I think they are pretty much going to do the heavy lifting.
Please, my name is Arun Srinivasan. I'm the chief data scientist at a startup called Kaizen Analytics. We've been in business for about 4 years as a company. I did my master's at University of Buffalo in operations research. Been in the AI data science field for almost 10 years now. Recently joined the NJ chapter of TiE. Excited to meet everyone and happy to connect.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Arun Shroff, and thank you Rajesh for inviting me. Thank you to Ram and the rest of, and Neetu for inviting me to participate in this event. Really delighted to be here. So very quickly, I have been a tech entrepreneur for almost 25 to 30 years. This is my 4th or 5th company. I've lost count actually. So at any point, I'm still a budding entrepreneur. Okay, Kritika. Right now, I have a company called Extend.ai that's using AI to solve challenges with a rather ambitious goal of solving global challenges. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. I'm also co-founder of a website called Med India, which is like a health website like MedND, focused on India and South Asia, which gets a lot of traffic from US as well. In addition to that, I've got a couple of other hats and a voluntary position. I'm part of something called the Focus Group on AI for Health, which is the WHO initiative to benchmark AI algorithms in health. So I've been contributing very actively to that in the last year and a half. And the rest of the stuff, I guess we can talk about later. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you both here. In fact, I have known Arun for many years now. He is my senior from IIM Ahmedabad by over 10 plus years.
I don't say how many years.
I just want to say 10%. I'll leave it.
The rest is left to imagination.
You know, but given the number of things that he has been doing, obviously he talked about some of them, right? And the energy with which he has kept himself engaged in so many things and how he has probably kept pace with all the developments, it has been an inspiration. So it has been a pleasure to
Thank you, Rajesh.
have known you for so long. Right? And good to have you as well, Anna. So about myself, right, you know, I have been, I'm not a technical person, right, even though our topic is fairly technical as such, artificial intelligence, but I'm not a technical person. But I am somebody who has been in the business of technology for over 25 years. Yes, I do have a technical degree, I'm an electronics engineer, but I think that stopped pretty much in my engineering days. And thereafter I've been, yes, all along in the business of technology in one way or the other. You know, when I was, what do I do? Most of you know me as an angel investor, right? I have an angel investment firm called 92 Angels. There are, when I say 92 angels, it doesn't mean 92 people have come together and formed this fund. It is the 1992 batch of Aggarwal. 10 of us got together and we started this 92 angel firm. It is not.
We guessed it right. We were thinking about that.
And it is not meant for
I thought it was born
outside
in
investment.
I thought it was born in and that. Maybe, yeah.
I would be pleased, but Arun would be even more pleased. So, you know, so 10 of us started this. We obviously keep inviting ideas, proposals. We invest in very early stage companies. TiE has been one of the, I would say, forums from where we get a lot of ideas, we get into discussions and so on and so forth. You know, the interesting thing, I'll talk about AI, I'll come to that in a minute. The 10 of us, we have 1 person in Singapore, 4 in India, 1 in London, and 4 in the US. Right? So that's the way we are distributed. Okay. Originally we thought, given the kind of maturity that is out there in the US market, most of the activity will happen here. And probably not as much in other geographies. We started this somewhere around May of last year. We have been inundated with so many proposals from India that practically we are not even trying to reach out to anywhere else here in the US except the TiE network that I'm closely associated with, but outside of it, we originally thought we'll connect with probably Rutgers Innovation Cell or Entrepreneurship Cell or Cornell or UPenn or Columbia, whatever. We don't have time for it. I think the entrepreneurship cells in India in particular, and we are talking about NASCOM, IIT, Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad and so on and so forth. I think it is thriving. I'm just bringing it to your knowledge what we have been going through in the last 8-9 months and so on and so forth.
Solve investment criteria.
Oh, for us?
Solve
Sure.
tech deals.
No, so thanks for asking that question. We focus on this. You can call it social investing or social angel investing, but it is not a charity area. We focus on those areas which benefit the humankind, right? That's the focus. And we have identified 6 areas. We look at food, water, education, energy, communication, and healthcare. Right? And all of these have to be supported by deep tech. Right? So that is the combination. Obviously, each of these should be able to justify their existence. Right? It's not as if our threshold is lower. It's just that we are willing to take higher risks, right? Because the benefits are much larger. That's the way we are hoping. So higher risk and probably in very early stages. That's the criteria that we have based on which we make the investments. And believe me, there are so many of them coming, at least from India, and there are quite a few from here as well. But commercial benefit is not the sole criteria. It probably is the 3rd or the 4th priority in our list. Right.
And is it the technology agnostic or?
Say again?
Is it technology agnostic or do you have a certain preference on the technology?
No, it's technology agnostic, right? We are not so fascinated by the buzzwords, blockchain or AI or whatever, right?
I'd imagine that.
Yeah, so not as much. It is just about the idea, the business model, right, and the benefit or the beneficiaries. That is important. we did this, like I have been doing this for a little over a year, but I think few months of doing this made me realize I have too much of execution in me to just invest and sort of sit on the sidelines. There have been a few ideas that were there in my mind for quite some time. A few months back, I launched our own so-called startup, so it's invested in myself in a way, along with two of my co-founders. They both happen to be here. My wife Nidhi, right? She in fact has been working on that. And I have Ravi, who is also from Ahmedabad, between me and Arun. I'll just leave it there. So we are working this, I'll keep it short because I do want to quickly get to the topic of the day. This business is called Gestalt, right? And we enable a digital culture in corporate organizations. And we do it through workforce digital transformation. So we work on the mindset of the workforce. We are not talking about technology people. We are talking about the C-level executives down to probably all professional executives that are there, right? How do we help them? We help them develop digital mindset, effectively help the organizations realize the benefits of all the technical investment they have made. Right? That's what the business is all about. Largely developed by my wife Nidhi with the help of a couple of Columbia professors over a 6-month period. That idea got developed there, framework was evolved, and finally rolled it out. So we launched it a couple of months back, and I think at a very promising stage at this point in time. Okay. All right, sure. Okay, so that was a long introduction, but let me get back to the topic of the day. So, when this topic was discussed, I thought I'll do it the same way as we did blockchain, right? Where since I'm not a technical person, I wanted to make sure that I make it, I would say, very easy for the audience to understand what is powering blockchain. At the end of the day, all said and done, right? Blockchain is a collection of technologies, and whosoever or whichever group put it together, right, did a fabulous job. I'm assuming I would highly recommend you read the original paper written by Satoshi on blockchain. So I was thinking I'll adopt the same concept for artificial intelligence, demystify right, what exactly is AI, and so on and so forth. But as I was preparing for this session, I realized it's unlike blockchain, which is still, which is still a black box, right? People are still discovering. AI has been around for quite some time, maybe over 50 years, in one form or the other. It has reached a very high level of hype stage today, right? And we talk about why now, right? Why we were not having this kind of a talk maybe 10 years, 20 years back. But then as I realized, originally the thinking was we'll demystify AI in this session, and we'll look at practitioners in the next one. But given that discovery, I instead decided that we should invite practitioners right away, because AI is not as much of a black box as blockchain was, right? It doesn't require so many, we will touch upon what exactly is under the hood, but it doesn't require so much of, I would say, detailed explanation as blockchain requires. So that's why I made that change. We were also talking about a workshop, which we will talk about towards the later part of this. Now, given that I'm not a technical person as such, right, I do want to share with you what got me into this world. Until about a year back, right, I was CEO of two software product companies, one called Wide, headquartered in Paris, another one called Eldorado, which is headquartered in Phoenix. Both of them were part of a company called Emphasis, which is a Blackstone group company, right? And these were being run independently. And given that I was the CEO of a product company, obviously you get some unfair advantages if you're a CEO, right? Since I had a fascination for technology, I would try and introduce, right, newer things into my software products, leveraging the capabilities of newer technologies, right? So they were always there in the back of my mind. I had a team which would present to me the newer developments, right, happening in the technical world and their applications. We had, one of them was on AI as well. Excuse me. I was having a conversation with a CIO of Zurich Insurance. This was in Europe, right? And he came to us with a very interesting problem. As many of you know, insurance is sold with the help of brokers, right? Okay. Now, obviously, the market is changing, but still, right? When it comes to, say, group insurance in particular, it is sold with the help of brokers. Zurich, they did some analysis and realized that 4% of their brokers bring over 70% of the business, right? And they were not worried with this fact. They did some analysis and found out that it was not as if other brokers were not effective or they didn't have business, right? Probably they were taking their business elsewhere, right? They wanted to understand what is the magic bullet that these 4% brokers have and how they can actually apply it or extend it to the other brokers, right? That's the challenge they were trying to resolve. We got into some discussion because, right, we have been their partners for over 10 years, right? So as such, we were the logical outsourcing partner to whom they came with this problem. You know, we did some analysis jointly with them, and we figured out that those 4% brokers have a much better relationship with the underwriters. What allows them to do is, basically, after understanding what are the criteria that these underwriters use to price the so-called product, right? These brokers they were a lot more effective in understanding the requirements of the corporate houses, tailor the product without necessarily coming back to the underwriters, right? They could come up with a range, right? And they were much faster, they were more accurate, right? And probably even price competitive, or they were able to tailor the product more specific to their customers, right? So they had that little bit of extra advantage. What was powering that extra advantage? Probably a better relationship with the underwriters or better understanding of how the underwriters were operating. It was more the former, but a little bit of latter as well. Now, you know, without increasing the pool of underwriters, how do you enable better access to the other 96% of brokers, right? Obviously, then underwriters can't do their job. Underwriters' primary job is, right, underwriting, right? Not as much to talk to brokers. So the first phase of solution that we started working on is, all right, let's have some chatbots. Let's have some assistant underwriters, right, who can probably address many of those queries. Maybe have single point of contact to other brokers so that they can probably filter the requirements and so on. It was only partially effective. It didn't go very far, right? It didn't work. The fact of the matter is direct understanding to the direct access to underwriters was the key. And as we were trying, we realized this is not working out. Then we finally had to flip it over. If underwriters are key to increasing the business, right? How do you, instead of trying to probably come up with surrogate mechanisms to help the brokers, how do you in fact do something on the workload that the underwriters are having and make them more available to the brokers, right? In a way, they will spend a lot more time with the brokers and become more effective. That's the problem we were trying to solve. Am I audible now? Okay. So, so that's the problem we thought we should solve. How do you make the job of an underwriter, all right, easier? Right? Hey, that's a sacrosanct job. That's the core. Right? You can't play around with the risk. We had an underwriting module. It was very well crafted. Everything was well laid out. So we tried to do something over there. No, it was well done. All the functions, everything was well taken care of. Right? And then finally, we started looking out. There was a lot of discussion that finally led us to so-called machine learning. Is that saying, hey, probably that is where we might find the problem, find the solution out there. And so we started peeling the layers. Nobody in my technology unit or in the whole organization knew as much about machine learning per se. So we all started discovering. And I'm talking about 6-7 years back.
Right.
And as we unpeeled the layers, say again?
So I was like, not sure which year was this.
Yeah, right. So I'm talking about, that's how I got into this world, when I say, got into the world of machine learning. So at that point in time, right, we figured out that without increasing additional ways. So how do you make the job of an underwriter easier? Right. Yeah, okay, there is a manual entry, that was the easy thing that could be taken care of. We could subcontract it to others and so on and so forth. That was very quickly done. But then we realized if we reduce the risk, right, and find a way to reduce the risk assessment of all the cases that are coming, that will obviously make their job easier. If we can help the system make recommendations or predictions with higher level of confidence or with higher probability numbers, it will make their job easier. But that cannot be done without access to additional data. So what kind of data are we talking about? Right? As such, the underwriting data, we have a formal mechanism. So then we started figuring out that, hey, if we look at all these newer things that are being talked about, collecting data from their, I would say, medical health records, right, and all that kind of stuff, it will help, but that is not easy, right? People are not willing to give in that data. So there was only one thing that we could figure out, we could apply. Let's learn from our recommendations, right? So the only thing we could do was bring the feedback loop back into the system, right? Until then, our underwriting module, and that was pretty much the standard in the industry, and most of it is still there, right, was only one way. Right? You take all the customer data, let it go through your algorithm, which is all equations and formulas and all that kind of stuff, and let it throw out the output based on how you have programmed or how you worked out your algorithm, right? There was no feedback loop. So and that is at the core of machine learning or artificial intelligence that we are talking about, right? The feedback loop is what we built in. The recommendations for different categories of customers, right? We started pulling it back in. If for this group of customer based on this criteria, this is what the recommendation was based on, which was based on certain level of risk, right? What has been the accuracy of those recommendations, right? What exactly is happening out there? And we built the feedback loop back in, right? And then we started using that feedback, right, as a parameter. So instead of we just assessing and saying, hey, we should make this change in the algorithm or in the program, we took that feedback and fed it into the algorithm. So it became human independent, all right? And in the process, right, it started learning. And as it started learning, it started becoming, our prediction started becoming better and better. Right? And eventually, right, it got to a stage where after doing a series of tests over months, right, the underwriters became so much more comfortable with that idea, saying that, hey, this is making sense now. They had a lot more time available for the brokers. This feedback loop piece that I'm talking about essentially is not very different from the feedback loop that we all go through when we start learning driving, right? We see things, we learn, and we correct. In a way, that is what was happening. Right? And for all practical purposes, that is artificial intelligence in practice. Right? It was a long story, but I had to explain it to simplify artificial intelligence for you. Right? As such, this has been talked around for 60 years now, in one way or the other. Right? Rudimentary AI has always been there. But this is what I just described is at the core of machine learning. It is still, you can call it machine learning. AI, ML sounds sexy, right? But there are other terms also out there. We call them predictive analytics, right? Or prescriptive analytics, all that kind of stuff. They are all the same. Where things have gotten very interesting in the recent past is this new concept of deep learning, right? Where things have gone beyond I would say tangible numbers or data as we otherwise understand. Right? Deep learning is that stuff that helps us or helps the system recognize probably faces. Right? How does a computer, right, or a technical system, which is all about ones and zeros, how can it recognize that this face belongs to Sam? Right? And I'll not go into those details because I think Arun and Anand will touch upon it, but that's where things get very fascinating and interesting. Right. So I will probably at this point in time, I'll ask Arun to step in, right? Go through some of these, I would say, nuances behind artificial intelligence and machine learning, and he'll also touch upon deep learning, and then I'll come back.
Okay. So I have a 100-slide deck here. I'm sorry. It's going to take all day. No, I'm just kidding. I'll try to rush through about 10 or 15 slides on AI to just give you a quick crash course on what AI is all about. And what it is, what is this AI, machine learning, deep learning, and all of this stuff that everybody's talking about. So, quick overview. AI, you hear machine learning, you use deep learning. You know, all of these concepts are used very confusingly and interchangeably. So, quick context. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is an umbrella term invented in 1956 by a computer scientist called John McCarthy at Dartmouth. And the idea was, can we use computers to mimic human intelligence? Can we do things that human beings typically do? Reasoning, abstract reasoning, recognizing faces, understanding speech. And they set an ambitious goal. By the year 1995 or 2000, we'll have all of that cracked. Turned out it wasn't so easy. So AI went through these cycles of boom and bust for the next 50 years. And there were promising developments, and then there were, it didn't work. A lot of stuff worked, a lot of stuff didn't work. So ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. The last 5 or 10 years, and now today, you can't open a website or a publication without hearing about AI. So what's all the excitement about? Turns out there's a technique, and in 1959, a guy called, somebody called Samuels, he invented a game of checkers using a concept called machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI, so they started with a smaller problem. How do you win at a game of checkers or chess? That's an easy problem, right, for a computer to solve. It's got logic and all of that stuff. So machine learning was invented in 1959 to win at checkers. And Samuel, the guy who pioneered machine learning, said, can we make a computer program learn on its own? So that's where machine learning started. So machine learning is any program or algorithm that can learn from examples or data. So the game of checkers, was pretty quickly solved, and then we have chess in 1997, Garry Kasparov being beaten by Deep Blue. All of that is AI and machine learning. Deep learning was actually nothing but machine learning, but it uses a slightly different technique called, machine learning uses a lot of algorithms and traditional programming. Deep learning uses something called deep neural networks. These are deep layers of neural networks that are much better at doing this learning from data. So anyway, that's a quick, now, how many of you have done programming here before? Almost everybody, right? Some exposure to programming. So in traditional programming, the way you do it is, you have some input data, and then you sit and write a program to process the data, maybe sort it or whatever, right? And then it spits out an output, which is what you want. In AI, this is the breakthrough. You take the output that you want and you feed it back, like what Rajesh was talking about. In his case, the output was a prediction of how good is this recommendation, right? You take that output, and traditionally you were just discarding it. You take it and you feed it back into your system. That's the key breakthrough. In this one slide, all of you here know more about AI and machine learning than 99% of the people out there, I can tell you. This is the key insight. This AI algorithms learn from data. You don't need to do any programming. You feed it the input data, you feed it the labels, you feed it the desired output, and it spits out a model that can then be used to make predictions on new data. That's what machine learning and AI is all about. This is a good, when somebody says, oh, I'm an AI, everybody thinks, oh, wow, you must be spending a lot of time coding. No. Most of the time in machine learning and AI, the reality is, it's all about data. You collect data, you annotate data, you label data, you clean data, and then you create a model, you iterate many, many, many times, you run experiments. So that's the pie chart, which tells you what AI is all about. And then you get a model works well, now you use it on new data. So this little comic on the side from XKCD kind of encapsulates what AI and machine learning in practice is all about. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but it pretty much gives you the picture that if it doesn't work, you tweak the data, you tweak the model until it works. Now, the reason why deep learning is such an exciting thing today is because it turns out that deep learning is much better at learning from data than machine learning is. In fact, the older algorithms, after a while, they level out. After some level of accuracy, you can't make them do anything more. Deep learning, you can keep feeding it more. The more data deep learning has, the better the algorithm becomes. So today, we all live in this age of big data. So this is the reason why industry giants like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, they have all this data. So they're able to create these phenomenally good models which can predict what are you going to buy next, what are you going to search for next, and all of that. That's the secret behind their power. And no wonder the top 5 most valuable companies in the world are these companies, powered by data. So I'm going to just quickly, since I have only a few minutes, I'm going to talk quickly about some application of AI. So one of the applications that I'm involved with is AI in healthcare. So why AI in healthcare? Now, healthcare is one area where you have a lot of data, but there's a problem because you have a shortage of doctors in places like India and Africa. We just don't have enough medical professionals to treat or screen everybody at risk for all kinds of diseases. That's where AI can be a big, big help. Not only that, AI, these deep learning algorithms, they're able to figure out stuff that we will not be able to detect. These are very, what we call weak patterns. Most human beings are good at looking at an image and figuring out what's going on, but deep learning and AI image recognition algorithms can go far beyond that. So you can detect the disease much earlier. So when you detect a disease much earlier, you have obviously a better chance of treating it, and all of that, and it's much less expensive, right? So I'm now going to quickly talk about an actual use case of AI in healthcare, which I'm kind of working on currently. So, one of the things we looked at was, what is one big global challenge in health which we could tackle with AI? Turns out, of course, deep learning and AI, one of the areas where it's been very successful at is image recognition. So it's a low-hanging fruit in AI and deep learning. You can take an image and use the AI and machine learning to classify it. So one of the diseases, in fact, this was the reason was somebody came to us, we run a health website, and this was a customer of ours. They had, ophthalmologists. They run a phenomenally large teleophthalmology practice in India with actual human doctors. And, they detect diabetic retinopathy, which is caused by diabetes. And, these are small little lesions which appear on the retina. And if you don't detect them early enough, they lead to vision loss and blindness. In fact, diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of blindness worldwide today. There's 422 million people with diabetes. 1/3 of them suffer from diabetic retinopathy, and all of them are at risk of vision loss. So this is a good challenge for AI to tackle. So we looked at that. And of course, there are not enough specialists in India, like not enough ophthalmologists to screen everybody. I mean, even if you double or triple or make the numbers 10 times bigger, they're not going to be enough. Perfect example where AI can make a difference. I mean, we looked at this and we looked at places like Africa and Kenya and Angola, and you'll be amazed and astonished the number of people. Kenya, for example, 30 million people, only 29 ophthalmologists. Wow. It's crazy. So, this is an ignored problem. It's non-communicable disease. Of course, people like Gates Foundation are looking at other diseases, but this is a disease which leads to vision loss. It's a big problem. Sure. So anyway, we worked on it. Just to give a quick background, after my MBA, actually, I wasn't satisfied with all the hard work we did. So I came here and did a master's in computer science. And, believe it or not, I worked in AI. My master's thesis was in AI. Oh, wow. In the 80s. I'm old. And in fact, I wrote a program in Lisp.
You're a young pup.
I'm sorry?
I said you are a young pup.
Young pup, yeah. So my master's thesis was on AI. I wrote a program to play backgammon, and I wrote another program to advise undergraduates in Lisp using a chat, like a chatbot. You'd call it a chatbot in Lisp. Anyway, I gave it up because that was not the right time for AI. I became a consultant, I did consulting and all of that, and I became an entrepreneur and all of those things. And then just a couple of years back, I was in India, my mom was sick, I was paying attention to, taking care of my mom. And it turns out that Andrew Ng, who is a big AI computer scientist, he put this course on deep learning on Coursera. Everybody was raving about it, and I always had an interest in AI. But I was not an AI practitioner, so I went online, I kind of binge-watched all of his courses, I learned deep learning all over again, refreshed my fundamentals, and I said, okay, let's take a look at it just for the fun of it. And it turns out that that was very useful because then I could train our team to use AI for some of these problems. So anyway, we developed this solution with our team in India. It's an AI solution which for diabetic retinopathy. Now this is a problem which I know Google is also working on, by the way. I'm sure many of you might know this. But the space is big enough, the challenge is big enough that other people can also contribute to it. I'm not going to go into details of the solution because it's not necessary to this topic, but it's just a solution which is cloud-based, uploads images, using the fundus cameras, processes it, gives a diagnosis. Turns out it's pretty accurate. I mean, we are working with an ophthalmologist, so the human beings can look at this diagnosis of the AI and compare it with their diagnosis. So actually, right now, that's what we're trying to do. We're just running trials on that.
So you can capture it through a smartphone.
So we are trying to work on a smartphone device that can do this. I think that's where the gap is. How can you use a smartphone to do this? So imagine everybody carrying a smartphone around. You take a picture of your retina. Our smartphones have actually got better resolution than those fundus cameras. Upload it, the AI processes it. It's all about data. Now this gentleman has 200,000 images of retinas, and they've labeled it. But it wasn't that simple. I'll come to that a little bit later, but let me just quickly. So anyway, we had some challenges. Surprise. So like with everything else, what are the challenges? One of the biggest challenges, as you know, AI works on data. The data quality, if you feed the AI model garbage data, you're going to get garbage out. So garbage in, garbage out, like the old saying. We had problems with data quality. So we were training these models, but it wasn't very accurate. Then we looked at these images. So of course, I'm not an ophthalmologist. I have no idea what images they're giving us. So if they've labeled the images incorrectly, the AI is not going to give you the right prediction. Just like in Rajesh, your case, if you're trying to build an AI model to predictions, and if your data to begin with is not accurate, you're not going to get a good model, right? So when we looked at these images, we had 15 to 20% of the images of eyes, outside of the eyes, not of the retina. So the AI was not learning what it got. So this is where the difference is between AI and human being. A human doctor would just discard that image. An AI doesn't know any better, it doesn't have common sense, right? It would actually incorporate that into its algorithm, and it turns out that's not a very good thing to do. So anyway, so we actually ended up writing a different model to recognize the images of outside of the eye, discard them, kind of clean the data. So cleaning and curating of the data is a key part of AI. So just to quickly conclude, if you look at AI and what kind of impact it can have in different domains, let's say health.
Good question.
Just a minute will be done, and then.
No,
yeah, sure, please.
The retinal data
Yeah.
is coming from ophthalmology.
Yeah.
So it should be really, focused.
It should be, but it's not, because in India they use these less expensive fundus cameras, which don't give the best images. And when I talked to them, and he said, you know what? We can even manage with these. In India, how they say, yeah, we can manage.
Are they dilated? Or
Yeah, they're dilated.
Dilated, okay. Because the retinal image,
Yeah.
not only retinopathy,
Yeah.
where you have the leakage,
Right.
but you can also have the calcification
Of course, yeah. The exudates, as they call them.
and Alzheimer can also.
Absolutely, there's a whole range of ophthalmic diseases
Right.
which can be detected from the retina. I mean, it's amazing the amount of stuff that you can.
Yes.
But all of it starts with good data, which has been labeled accurately.
Correct.
So if your data is accurately labeled, you've got a good model. That's all it is. Anyway, So I think that the future of healthcare, which we are all currently, we have, all of us have smartphones. We are going around with these devices in our pockets. We can stay fit with it. So sensors are everywhere. So convergence of technology, sensors, data, and AI is going to create the next revolution in healthcare. Real-time continuous monitoring of health vitals, which will then give you personalized advice on what you should be doing, what you should not be doing, and all of those good things. So early detection and prevention rather than cure is where the future of AI is. Just want to stop here with this inspirational slide from Sundar Pichai, who should know, who's probably an authority on AI. AI is probably the most important thing humanity has ever worked on. Anyway, so I'll let now Rajesh continue and or bring on. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where are we with retinopathy in terms of AI?
So, you mean in terms of how good it is, or?
Where are we? Yes,
Meaning
we
in
have
delivering the
data mining, we have so many.
We meaning me or us?
Or in general.
So, okay, let me tell you, diabetic retinopathy is a challenge which is being solved by a couple of different companies. Right now, there's a company in the US called IDX from Iowa, which has got the first FDA-approved AI algorithm for diabetic retinopathy screening.
Okay.
Google is working with Arun Eye Hospital in India, and they've been working for the last 2 or 3 years, actually. And they claim an accuracy which is on par or better than ophthalmologists in terms of detection. Okay? And they had some challenges in India, though, because their algorithm didn't do very well when they first tried it, because it turns out that they trained it with data from US fundus campus. So when they went to India, it didn't work well. So there's about several companies, but the only FDA-approved, this is FDA-approved, IDX from Iowa, as an ophthalmologist who started this. We have trained a model to that level of accuracy as well, with the data that we have from the Indian operations. I'm also part of this WHO focus group on AI for health ophthalmology, so we have 4 or 5 other people contributing, and they have come up with their algorithms, and so we are benchmarking all of those. But it's a problem that's solvable. So the way we are looking at it is screening. So it can be used as a screening rather than a diet. So ultimately, an ophthalmologist still has to look at your eyes to treat you. But the initial screening can be done like blood pressure. Put your hand in, put your eye, take an image, tell you, okay, you should now go and see an ophthalmologist because you're at risk.
Could you say no, you don't need
Yes, you can. No and yes, exactly. So it's 80-20, the ratio is 80-20, 20% of the people will probably need to go to an ophthalmologist. Out of that, probably, 1 or 2% are very, very advanced. So this allows you to do very quick, early, fast screening.
So in terms of,
I don't want to take up too much time, but thanks.
in terms of early detection, retinopathy, in terms of diabetes,
Yeah.
people don't recognize it early enough. That's why I'm trying to understand.
We'll come back to that. Let's let Rajesh continue. I'll try to maybe during the break we can.
I would recommend that. So
Thank
we'll
you.
have enough time after the session is over, because that's a very specific discussion. I
Yeah.
appreciate your, I would say,
I do research on
I-
diabetes complications, so.
obviously that knowledge is apparent.
Good.
Sure. And I would encourage you to have that discussion after the
Thank
session
you.
is over.
Rajesh, I would like to add only one point.
Please.
Because Sundar Pichai's slide is there. He said a couple of weeks ago, with AI, with only a diabetic retinopathy, we will be able to predict any cardiovascular events for a given patient. When is it likely to happen? We will be able to tell that.
Sure. So obviously, it is difficult for me to comment specifically on that, but why I got up right now is to probably talk about what actually happens beneath the covers, right, which probably enables AI to do what you just talked about, right? And I'll get to that immediately at this point in time. By the way, one more comment that Sundar Pichai made, since we're talking about his comments, he said if last 10 years we were talking about mobility, the next 10 years we will be talking about AI, right? I think this is one of his recent comments. And I completely believe in that as I see more and more things getting done. Now the example I gave, the insurance example, right? We were talking about tangible data, numerical data, the age of the customer, the number of accidents, all that kind of stuff, right? So when we talked about the model learning, it was easy stuff, right? It is still about formulas and equations. How do you learn, right? When the data that is being fed to you is an image, right? It is not, so the reason I got up was to just unravel that part of it, right? What exactly is this concept of deep learning, right? That was not machine learning as it, okay, obviously deep learning is a subset of machine learning, but prior to deep learning, machine learning was not able to do that. So the reason why the world is so excited about deep learning is this, right? You know, when you take an image, right, and okay, before getting to a retina, I'll take, say, a dog and a cat, all right? You take the image, the camera and the computer behind it, right, would break it down into those pixels or whatever, right? And we'll start assigning values to those pixels. We're talking about maybe the color, the intensity, the size, the outer edges, all that kind of stuff, right? But when you have to break down, if you're looking at accuracy, any image has to be broken down into infinitesimal, or whatever that word is.
Infinitesimal.
Yeah, thank you for that. Into those very, very minute to that level of detail, right? And and this is probably for one image. And we are talking about scanning and comparing thousands of images, because we need to compare so many images before the machine can predict, right? So what has to happen is we have to train the machine, right, to basically compare huge volumes of data, right? Saying that, hey, if you see this is an image, right? These are the characteristics, then yes, if you get a similar image, you can label it that way. But it is not possible for us to break down the characteristics of an image. We can't do it. It was easy for the insurance for when I was running a software company, for my product engineers, it was easy to get down to the numbers. We can't even do that for images. Right? That's when it becomes interesting how artificial intelligence, the computing power, all of that brought together, how it can, without our programming intervention, it can take that image, break it down, right, into parameters that we cannot even touch, except probably at a high level we can talk about how it should be broken down, and then process thousands and thousands of these images. What it will do is, if it takes an image of a dog, all right, and we tell the computer that the image that you are seeing is of a dog, and we tell them 20 such images of dogs, right, it will by itself figure out, right, that if these are the characteristics of the data that are being fed, this image is of a dog. Likewise, it can be for the retina. If we keep on feeding it the healthy images while we are training it of a healthy retina, it will know what are those parameters that will define the healthy retina, right? And after it has been trained, right, then it will be easier for it to recognize when it is not a healthy retina. Now there, if we start training it on retinas, defective retinas or whatever, non-healthy retinas, which have shown in the past, right, to lead to cardiovascular diseases, all right, it would have learned, right? So which probably, I don't know how, obviously an experienced doctor can do it, but here we are talking about a machine being able to do it at that minute level, right? That is when it gets fascinating. That is probably the reason why there is so much excitement behind deep learning, right? Because it is doing things we cannot do, right? That's the fact of the matter.
It develops further. That way we can take care of the integrated health. You know, it's not only one parameter or two, and then you see so many specials.
That's right. And sorry, you were saying something, Sanjay.
Is it deep learning or is it cognitive reasoning?
Or is deep learning?
I think we have to. There's a lot of buzzwords being used these days, and just like blockchain, where it went nowhere and people started applying use cases to it. Technology obesity is also something, right? And is it deep learning or cognitive reasoning?
It's deep learning. It's deep learning. It's not cognitive reasoning.
So then deep learning becomes problematic for use cases to actually work and for commercial, right? And I'll explain later on why. I don't want to.
Okay, sure. We'll get to that. One more thing I want to touch upon. It is, and which is why are we talking about all of this now, right? The kind of training that has to happen, right, as you can imagine, the data that has to be processed, if you're talking about thousands and thousands of images, and if you have to break down the characteristics of a particular image, we are already talking about humongous amount of data, right? Processing so much of data, right, was not possible until about, say, 10 years back in a reasonable time, right? So right now, there is tremendous amount of computing power. There is huge amount of data that is getting collected, right? Algorithms have matured. So all these things are coming together, which is what is giving us, right, this opportunity to do those things which were not possible. That's the reason why AI has been in existence, as Arun said, for about 50, 60 years. There is so much excitement around it at this point in time. Right? Now I'll invite Anand here. Right? He's obviously a data scientist. He won't get into explaining more of AI, but since he is a true practitioner, he'll talk about true challenges that we realize, right, as we try and apply or put AI to use.
Thanks, Rajesh. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Right. Just a quick random guess. How much do you guys think AI is worth today in terms of companies spending on research or development? Ballpark numbers.
About $50 billion.
I'm sorry?
50 billion.
Okay. Any other guesses?
US or worldwide?
Globally. Don't look at smartphones.
So, are you talking just about AI, or are you
Yes.
talking about data in general?
AI.
I think it's like 10 or 12.
So Gartner recently predicted that it's going to be close to 190 billion
Right now or later?
by 2020.
Oh, by 2020. Oh, yeah.
We're almost there, 1 quarter away. And what percent of those projects are, you think, successful in delivering the objectives that they set out to deliver?
5%, probably 5 to 10%, if not less.
1%.
If you take the average of the room, it's about 35%. So 65% of the projects are not going to deliver the value that they set out to deliver. And being the practitioner, as Rajesh mentioned, I'm at the forefront trying to do this for a lot of my clients across different industries, whether it's media, whether it's entertainment, automotive, pretty much name the space. So what I have a couple of slides here just to talk about what are some of those challenges, right? So as an organization, as you, every one of the leaders in this group here, as you guys start to embark on your AI journeys, what are some of the things that you guys need to watch out for or keep in mind in terms of setting things up? So one of the biggest challenges is vision without an execution, right? So everyone wants to do AI. That's the reason why we're all here. We're talking about it. We know it's there. Everyone's talking about it. So what's the real question we're really trying to answer here, right? I was working with an aluminium company who wanted to use AI in their R&D department. That was the mission statement. We want to use AI in R&D, which is fine. I mean, okay, we can start there and then start to break it down a little bit further and see, okay, what can we do with what you're trying to do here, right? So I asked them, like, okay, so what are you trying to do? We're like, okay, we have a R&D life cycle that lasts about 10, 20 years, and can we use AI to accelerate that? Like, that sounds like a perfect use case for AI or machine learning. How much data do you have? Well, we've run about 20, 25 experiments. Each of them generates about 50 data points. So we're talking about like 1,000, 1,500 data points. That's not AI. I mean, you'd be lucky if you can fit data science in that space, right? But that doesn't mean that you cannot use AI. What ended up happening was, how do you accumulate the data? Can you be intelligent about how you collect data? Can you use AI to do that? So what we did was actually develop a natural language processing algorithm that would go and search the different patterns that are out there by other companies, information that's publicly available, that you can then take to add to your 1,250 or 1,500 data points. So now you're talking about at least a couple of 100,000s of data points, because R&D, aluminium has been existent since mankind has, and everyone's done that work. How do you synthesize that information? How do you collect data using AI? That's a perfectly fine use case. What that told us, or what that journey taught us, was really AI doesn't necessarily need to be tied to a very specific use case. Use case can evolve, but you need, before you start developing a solution or putting a team together that says we're going to solve this problem, you need that execution layer. You need to know what you're shooting for, what's your right answer. As Arun pointed out earlier, you need your data labeled. You need to know what's right and what's not. Otherwise, you're not going to get any value out of it. The other one that I commonly run into is we do a lot of POCs, like 2 months, 3 months, and you try and prove that, hey, there is value here. Then how do you take that to scale? How do you take that to production? In the example that Arun was talking about, they used, Google tried to use the retina images in US and tried to use a model that was trained on retina images in US on Indian eyes, I guess. And that didn't work because your sample size was not right? So you restricted your POC or your training data set to be so small that it became one very unique data that cannot be extrapolated. So how do you find that right balance of having enough diversity in the data to handle the different data conditions, the different situations, the different exceptions that you have to deal with on a day-to-day business? No 2 days, as everyone here is an entrepreneur, you guys know, no 2 days are the same, right? So how do you account for all those vagrancies when you set up the POC so that your AI solution that has been developed in POC will actually work in a broader industry or in a broader organization? The third one is trying to balance the complexity with adoption. I think there's been a lot of really rich discussion around what is deep learning, what is machine learning, how do you differentiate between the two, what is true AI. At the end of the day, that algorithm is only as good as the frontline team member who has to actually use the recommendations or the predictions. If they cannot understand why the machine is telling them what it's telling them, they're not going to use it. Right? You look at the most recent example, the Boeing, the 737 fiasco that recently happened. There was an AI, and the AI was actually reasonably accurate, and it was doing what it was doing, but no one ever told the pilots that it might do this because this is happening, or because of this sensor. And when that happens, that's a recipe for disaster for AI. You lose, not only do you lose the 99% precision that you have developed, you lose the entire fidelity of that solution, right? Because your operators, your business people who are meant to take those decisions don't trust that solution anymore. So that 1% instance where you made a mistake, or the machine made a mistake, or the algorithm made a mistake is all that sticks with people. So you got to be cautious about how you message that explainability. And one of my former mentors used to say that it's better to get a 99% accurate solution that can be solved in 1 second rather than get a 99.999% solution that will take me a minute to solve. Because, and mathematically, there are a lot of mathematicians in this room, I'm sure you guys can solve it. In a minute, that 99% solution will converge to nearly the same value as the 1 minute 99.999% precision answer. I just have a couple more, I don't want to hold people from dinner. The team, right? So AI is not something, AI is built on technology. It's not an independent skill, as Arun pointed out, and as I've learned, and there are a lot of other practitioners in the room as well. You need different skills, and you need those skills to work together as a team. You need your domain experts. You need your business process experts who can tell you what's feasible and what's not. An AI algorithm, one of the examples that I had worked on was around workforce planning for an entertainment park operator. And the AI solution was recommending extremely high cost savings. I'm talking about like 30-35% cost savings, which is huge for an entertainment park considering their labor costs. But the biggest challenge in that space was it would tell one person to work on the north end of the park for one shift and then 5 minutes later jump to the other end. Now, if you have a business expert, if you have a domain expert who understands, who has been to the park, who has seen the park and understands that it's like a mile away, you can't cover that distance in 5 minutes, that's the challenge. You need those people to stop you and validate your results as they come out. Solution architects and data engineers, as we talked about earlier, how critical is data, right? So AI in general is a very greedy algorithm. The more data you feed it, the better it gets. But how do you now source this data? How do you structure this data? How do you keep it refreshed? How do you keep it real time? Those are real practical challenges that a lot of businesses are struggling with, right? Like, we talk about this massive explosion of data. We talk about Twitter and social media data and all of these other avenues, and there's now Internet of Things, which allow you to get real-time sensor information about all your customers. But how are you going to archive this? How are you going to store this? That's where the data engineers come in. Because unless you can collect data in real time, but if you can't feed that to your AI algorithm real time, it's practically useless. Right? The last one is a controversial thing. Should you have AI experts embedded in as a separate wing in your organization, or do you embed them with operational team? I work very closely with Toyota, and they have a principle called Genji Genbutsu, which is roughly English translation of that is get your boots on. It's essentially saying if you want to understand where the problem is, go to the shop floor. And AI needs to do the same thing. If you are trying to solve a problem in case of medical diagnosis, you got to go to the field and you got to talk to the doctors, the frontline people who are dealing with the solution, and embed yourself with them. If you don't know how your algorithms are being used, how the interpretation is taking place, and how the failure of your algorithm, what are the consequences of it, it's going to be very difficult for you to recognize that and adapt that to your model. Rajesh talked about the reinforcement learning, where you found errors and then you fed that in. But in order for you to do that, you had to stick around. You had to wait for the model to fail and see what was happening before you could feed that back in. By qualification, most AI experts have advanced degrees, and a sense of an ivory tower comes very naturally to us. I can speak for my team. A lot of us have a chip on our shoulders. But we've got to avoid that. We've got to work with the operational folks, the people who are really making those decisions, to embed ourselves with them so we see the pain that they have. And that's what really helps drive business value. I'll stop there. If you guys have any questions or would like me to comment more on anything, I'm happy to do that now or after.
Thank you, Arun. So I'll bring it to a close, but I won't do justice to the title, right, if we don't briefly touch upon this concept of singularity, right? So it's a little bit of a fascinating topic. It's a theoretical one, so I won't go into too many details. But the singularity, as most of you know, it's about probably unlimited artificial intelligence exposure, right? Getting to a stage where the machine intelligence exceeds probably the sum total of all human intelligence on this planet. Right? And in a way, that is the direction history has been taking so far. Right? All the development, technological development that happened probably until the year 1500, right? That much development probably happened in the next 250 years, right? What happened in those 250 years from 1500 to 1750 probably happened in subsequent 100 years and so on and so forth, right? If we bring it today, the technical development that happened from 1900 to 2000, for all practical purposes, will be accomplished by the time we hit 2025, right? Keep on extending it. What happened in these 25 years from 2020 to 2025 will happen in the subsequent 10 years, 5 years, and that's why they are predicting by 2045 we will hit that stage. So where intelligence, machine intelligence will, and we are talking about 2045, 25 years from now. And it is not as if somebody has just coined this, you just map, you just draw the graph. That is where it is going. Right? So what does that mean? Right? Will it be good? Will it be bad? Nobody knows. But one thing, by and large, people are coming, getting to that conclusion that all said and done, machines are dumb, right? And they will remain dumb. You talk about all the patterns, all the learnings, all the predictions, they will still talk about what. They will not talk about why, right? You're selecting your movies on Netflix, right? Based on your inputs. It is continuously refining it and you're getting better and better recommendation. Obviously that's AI in practice that we see on a daily basis. But it never goes behind the scenes why, right? Why somebody is preferring that. Or what has to happen to change, right, that preference. It doesn't bother because that's not the mandate, that's not what it can do, right, so on and so forth. I think you talked about it doesn't have common sense, it does not, right? But some of the recent studies or some of the recent attempts are, the machines are being fed commonsensical statements, right? If I am in the house, that means I will be smaller than that house, right? These kinds of common sense statements are being fed in order to create that common sense, right? I don't know how it is even possible to get to that stage. How many statements can you feed? But people have not given up on it, right? So, yeah, it is possible. If it falls into the wrong hand, yes, it can be disastrous. If it is programmed incorrectly, right, where it comes to a conclusion that yes, humankind is probably, okay, if on these conditions, humankind is no more desirable or whatever, things can happen. But I don't see a self-aware kind of situation happening, right, where it becomes truly intelligent and start, I would say, planning and scheming and all that kind of stuff. Right? So just wanted to touch upon the concept of singularity. Right? I'll bring it to a close. I think thanks Arun and Anand. I think you have been very